this year.
Is it over?
Yeah, they lost the house.
Yeah, it was sad. It was a great.
Watched it on TV though. It was a great.
Yeah. So, whenever you watch it on the free, like you say, live stream them, my husband does the commentary. It was hysterical because Mike is like a Southern gentleman, and he just, well, I hate for anybody to get hurt, and she's like, very funny, but
We are recording, by the way, just so everybody knows. You don't have your computer, so you don't get the warning.
Okay. And so I have taught kindergarten, I've taught second grade and third grade here at Brandon. And for the last, I love it all. But and for the last 4 years, I've been doing student support and 504s and intervention.
You're awesome.
Well, thank you. Some days, but and so this is my first year that I'm not actually teaching intervention. It's lovely. Things that I feel. Oh, but no, I'm just kidding. But so that's right.
You don't have to write up.
The parents.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know. I've never done it this way before, but.
It works.
All right,
You're
ready to
doing
take it
your
off?
icebreaker.
No, that's good.
Don't stop it.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Keep going.
I have a fifth grader and a first grader. And you can be a very deal like it. Well, I have a first grader in DLI and pre-K.
Are they here in the program?
Yeah.
We got lucky.
No, more take care.
I can't
Great.
wait.
Michael Lynn is still, yeah. And we did an overlap, I think.
Yeah, just at an auction.
Yeah. And I've been here 18 years. Wow. And mostly third grade. The vast
And you're
majority.
third grade now.
Yeah,
The
third grade. Yeah.
I'm Kim. I have a seventh grader at Sutton, a third grader, and a first grader.
Awesome.
Ashley Mathis. I have a second grader in DLI and a soon-to-be kindergartner next year.
Oh, thanks for hearing. We all do.
Okay, that was me.
You have two as well here.
I have two kids at Brandon, first and third grade, general education, and I've been in education for 19 years. It's crazy. You've been here
Wow.
1 year less than I've been all of teaching.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah, I'm 19, so you probably graduated around the same time as me.
Is this your 6th year?
This is my 6th year here. Yeah.
Jay and I went to the same school, although we did not. We did overlap. We did not overlap.
Yeah.
My son is. Right, South Carolina. Yeah.
Did you fly there?
Yes, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I
Come talk to me, Jackson.
All right, so I gotta do my script here. So we're gonna follow the agenda. It's emailed to us and publicly noticed. I'm gonna remind everyone, this is a meeting of the Go team, only members of the team may participate in the discussion. I don't know if we have anyone online. Any members, we don't have anyone here, can just observe. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order and we're going to call roll. So, okay, you good, Kim, with the roll?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll just call it. Jay,
Present.
Ashley Scott here. Thomas is absent. Joy is absent. Maggie here. Mindy here. Rena here. Me, myself, and here. Anna present. Ashley present.
All right,
Quorum established.
perfect. All right, first order of business to approve the agenda, which,
I didn't pull it up.
Yeah.
but we had posted it and
Yeah.
sent it earlier.
so I think we can approve it. We're good? Yeah.
motion.
Motion.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good, Kim?
Mhm.
All right. So now we're gonna approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Minutes have been provided. Are there any corrections? I don't think we had any from the last. I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Mindy?
Okay. Moving on.
All right, first action item. is,
Discussion.
discussion. So what's our, okay, so our
45.
discussion is.
So let me start,
Oh,
we'll do,
45 day
we'll do the 45 check-in. This is going to lead us into some strategic planning work. So thank you all for being here. And of course, I had to postpone it so last minute last week, so thank you. But as you know, we didn't have internet for 3 days, and I'm hoping it will come back on. We don't have to have all the answers today, nor do we have to make any votes today, but by December 7th, we need to sit down and say, hey, our strategic plan is good and we're gonna vote on it. So that's the key. That gives us 2 weeks after we come back from Thanksgiving. So I'll take your feedback today, but also I may follow up with you individually, and we can do those one-on-one meetings, and we can even do a work session, and it doesn't have to be a GOTeam. I don't necessarily know if everybody wants to come back together for a work session, but I can take feedback and then send out some drafts to you, like take a look at it, so we're all ready to go on the 7th. So thank you for that. The goal is to be out of here at 4:30, but of course we can stay longer if we need. I do want to just draw attention to the room we're in right now, and I do that because a lot of parents don't come in this room unless you're in like PTA, because we do meet in here. But this is our planning room. You look around, we got charts everywhere. You can see our 3rd grade team was in here all day today. We do this a lot, and I use this as an example because we allot funds in our strategic plan for substitutes, so our teams and our teachers can have full days of planning. Because like I've said this before, I'll say it again. Hattie does research, talks about the highest leverage action steps for students, and the number one thing is collective teacher efficacy. It's giving teachers the time to come together, to plan, to work together. So we really value that time. Health.
There's someone in the,
Yep.
waiting room.
Miss Little Waikisha Howe. Okay, Lena had, an IB meeting in here today. Can you just give us 30 seconds on what you guys talk about? Cause I see some awesome notice of wonder charts.
So we went through just an upcoming unit and worked on learning targets together as a team, and went through and just skeleton version of what our activities are going to be throughout the unit. And then the second part was working on visual thinking routines. As you can see some of the examples. So Sam had, he's awesome. He pulled example resources that are from our upcoming unit. And then we went through and actually participated and did kind of the work of like what it would look like. I can like, there's like one over here, like that one, see the word observation, and you put a word down there, and then you go through and there are different steps of like kids have different markers and there are different questions that you ask them. Now write a word that makes you, when you think of the word observation, write a word down that you think of, and then you write it in green. And now write a sentence that goes with that word in brown. Now think you can connect the words and the sentences together, and you're like looking to see what connections you have with these like words that are words that would be like big concepts within each unit. So then we take that work and try to incorporate them into our classroom to just be more strategic around like fostering critical thinking. Kids. Yeah, really cool. We had some really good examples.
And the key for education is internalizing lessons before you teach. So for our parents, like you don't want your doctor to walk in and it's the first time he's like trying something, you know? Yeah. So we kind of look at it the same way. We want our teachers to dig into math units. We internalize with wisdom units. We look at best teaching practices. We do things like know and show charts or think puzzle wonder charts. So you can sort of, kind of put your thinking and your thoughts into what you're going to be teaching your kids and be able to make it, palpable and integrated with IB and all those types of things. And the goal is for the 7 teachers on this homeroom to walk out of the room and all really do the same thing, right? We came tight during the pandemic because before it was a lot of this teacher's phenomenal, this teacher's not doing anything they're supposed to be doing. This, we tied it together, and the hope is that, with a little bit of differentiation, of course, we don't want to take away the creativity and DLI and all that, is that teachers understand what's happening when they walk out of here and they lay it out. We go in, we look at it, we come back, we talk about it, and that's what moves the needle. Because they only have 90 minutes of planning a week together. That's it, so, all right. We're going to talk about our 45-day check-in. This is a check-in that I had to do with APS. That's around our continuous improvement plan, our CIP. You may hear me refer to it as CIP or SIP. That's strategic continuous improvement plan and strategic plan. So, but I'll probably say SIP or CIP. It's SIP. It's the same thing. So let's get started with that. And then we have an activity, and I'm going to garner a little bit of your feedback, but I want to remind you of just a couple things. We'll do our strategic plan check-in. We're going to look at our CIP check-in and then our strategic plan. Those are two different things. And I've done a little bit of work here to try and merge the two. When I looked at the documents, I'm like, well, these goals are old. They don't fit with our CIP goals. I put them together. I have an example of a good one and the old one, but we can kind of look at that and see what I did and provide feedback on that. So that has to do with the updates. And then I know we have some talking points at the end of the meeting if we just want to share a few things around CARES funding and, calendar surveys and everything else in between. Yeah, we can talk around that as well. Our CCRPI came out, and it's embargo, but our staff, we had a good staff meeting on Tuesday where we went through our content mastery score. So CCRPI is 4 categories and it gives you one big score. There's no one big score this year. We only have 2 categories and a score for each. And that's what parents are going to look at, right? Or gradeschools.org if they're not looking at CCRPI. And I've been going back and forth. It's on that district. I got to wait for them to do a public release. Then they'll put something out that says this percentage of schools, raise their content. And then we can start talking about it. The staff know, but besides from that, we'll just hold on to that. But that may be some data that we can present to them as well. When we look at some of our flags for some of our students, who did better than expected.
I have Jen McDonald working on it too.
Good.
Just been going back and forth with them.
Yeah, I have too. And they have like these strategic answers for everything that I'm just kind of like, you're a data person, but not an education person. Exactly. I can tell. They're somewhere out in California at some like Tech Valley trying to rate my school. All right. A couple things here. I won't read the slide to you, but we're going to talk about our CIP check-in. CIP we put together using milestone data. It's my admin team. We do it at the end of the summer, and we set goals for the whole year. CIP is a fluid document. Whatever we put on there, we need to be doing. And for the first time, they're actually holding me to like check-ins. We never did that before. So 45 days in, all of a sudden, I'm back with my boss. Like, where are you with this thing? So we're going to talk about that check-in today, and we just want to make sure that there's some fluidity between that and our CIP, our strategic plan. I'm sorry. Take a look at some of the questions to think about. What are the actions that we've already completed? What data supports the completion? These are things that I've already done for you. Don't forget, we have 3 goals. One is literacy, one is numeracy, one is whole child. Very simple. We want to raise 5% proficiency for reading, for math, and on WCI, whole child. We want to reduce our highly elevated and elevated students on 3 out of 6 grade levels. Those are the 3 goals. How we get to those 3 goals is very strategic, and what subgroups we target, what the timeline is, what kind of curriculum we're implementing, all of that. All right, so this is a remind me move so you can see. Hold on. All right, 3 goals. By the end of FY24, we're going to move from 71 to 76, 5% growth. We're going to move from 69 to 74, 5% growth. And then there's our WCI goal. Okay. This was my CIP check-in. So I'm just lifting some of that information off our documents. Talks a little bit around our fall proficiency, where we came in. When we talked about this with staff, with ELA, we kind of came in like we're like queued up for ELA. Like we were teed up to have growth. We've shown growth. We showed great growth on the milestones last year. Math, a little bit of a different story. We dropped a little bit in math. We know that we came in a lot lower. So now we've kind of got to go from 62 to 74 as opposed to 69 to 74, right? Yeah. We'll take a look at our winter math assessment. That's a lot more correlated to the end of the year. So in the winter math, if for some reason we were to raise that proficiency, we'd be a little bit closer. Full caveat, that's a lot of growth. I mean, 5% is hard. If we're doing 5% every year, in 4 years, it'd be 100%, right? Like that's not what happened. Because we do have students at Brandon that cannot be measured by proficiency. It's really important to know that we have kids here that will never be proficient. So we have to find ways to have them grow and show that they're outperforming peers that are like them. Many of those students sit in our SWD, our special education subgroup, where according to their exceptionality, they're just not going to be, reading on grade level in 3rd grade or, proficient and distinguished on science in 5th grade. But we can get them as close as we can, and sometimes we can push them over that proficiency line. So those were our 3 goals. So let's kind of check in. Let's start with literacy. These are just some of the goals. The first one was build teacher capacity as it relates to foundational early literacy skills, phonics, morphology, and the K-5. That was one of our strategies. We want to make sure that our K2 teachers are teaching foundations, phonics every day, morphology, the origin of words. We did want to roll it up to third grade. That may be an area on here that we haven't gotten to yet. We talked about building capacity to respond to core phonics data. Grades 3-5 at the beginning of building capacity around core phonics. They redeveloped the scope and sequence. Every teacher has been trained in Heggerty. K2 is doing a great job with this. Third grade, we have not rolled it up yet. Took us a while to get our phonics kits, but if you're a K2 teacher, Maggie can talk around like the implementation of Heggerty, the phonics she does every single day, the videos she's created. K2 does a lot with phonics. But we were trying, so we said K2 has been complete. We've done these things, but 3-5, and it really should be more so third. Like we're not going to be ready till March, and we haven't done the phonics piece in third grade just yet. So that would be our check-in, right? Methods for monitoring effectiveness, core phonics training. Does that sound familiar?
So we administered, I'm looking at this and I don't want to.
Okay.
All this. We administered a core phonics survey. So the training was like, do this. So I don't know. And then same with Heggerty. I use Heggerty every day, but it's really, I'm just sharing it, the online content, the video,
Yeah.
but there wasn't like a formal training. So
Right.
when I saw that, I was kind of like, was I trained? We're using it.
Did you do Heggerty training last year in PLCs and stuff, or was that this year? When did Kate live Heggerty?
Heggerty was rolled out in kindergarten initially, and I think they did maybe a training in it. And then first grade, we started using it. I know Dorothy and I started using it partially through the year. And then this year, we started the year out.
And just tell them what Heggerty is.
So Heggerty is a phonemic awareness curriculum. And so phonemic awareness is just the understanding and ability to manipulate sounds in a word.
Smallest bite-sized sounds.
Start with segmenting words into sounds. And what's great about it is it's really multi-sensory. So they'll have hand motions for it. So it'll be like cat, go, at. But then when we're like saying change the first sound in cat, like change the k to book. And we do this. We'll say at, bat. So there's all these little hand motions. We'll say like the vowel sound in cat. What's the vowel sound? Ah. And so it takes a multi-sensory approach to phonemic awareness. And a lot of kids, I feel like years ago, came in with more of this from preschool. Mm-hmm. And somehow we're kind of adding that back in now. Somehow that's not happening somewhere along the way.
Is this a first grade specific thing? Or
Yes. I mean, there's schools that use Heggerty. It's been around a long time.
similar to research killing?
It's very multi-sensory. Remember,
it overlaps a lot with FFG, and it's an important piece of phonemic awareness. It's an important piece of any literacy program or curriculum. I don't know where all Heggerty is used. I don't know if it's used in other APS schools, but it's
something you guys brought.
we brought it in. Yeah. And Kate did. She was early literacy, and it's free. It was free, by the way, so you have to buy it.
It's great. I learned stuff.
For others.
Yeah.
Too, like they're doing.
Right. When you hear things like Heggerty and Orton Gillingham and foundations, and you hear things like phonemic awareness, the small and phonological awareness, is 2 of the 5 big things of reading, right? Along with vocabulary, comprehension, fluency, you start getting into science of reading, right? And that's where we're all headed if you don't know yet.
No, but Morris Brand's been there. We invested over a decade ago. I remember because before I was pregnant with Audrey. Over a decade ago, we invested in sending teachers a complete reading series training. So we've been in this space. We've been here.
We still are sending teachers.
Yeah, we still are. They've changed. It's got a new name, but we're right. We are. So we're still sending our new staff. So we've been here. It's just, this is a great support that's easy and keeps it consistent. If one teacher's doing one activity and one another, this is consistent across there. And the kids, it's the same hand motion where it's like, some people do it like this. Now we're doing this, and so it's just, it's just getting everybody on the same page.
And seeing kindergarten, it's really cool.
Right.
You see them stand up and they're all at like the thing and they're,
It's really cute.
yeah.
Right.
And it's great because the phonemic awareness piece is also the rhyming, and it's like the things that you thought were happening just automatically in preschool. And yes, for some kids it is, but for those that don't catch on, it's like some intentional instruction.
It covers a lot of
And
bases.
math doesn't capture all that, right? And And this is the direction we're heading in because there's a literacy policy now being rolled out by the Board of Education. So if you've gone to any of the talks, like Tamara Jones will talk, we'll go through the literacy and the partnership with the Rollins Institute now that APS has. So, we're trying to get all the schools on that, but Brandon and schools like us are way ahead. And it starts with early identification, and it starts in
Yeah, so
kindergarten. It's not
that's
pre-K.
happening right in 2024, the whole dyslexia, like.
Yeah.
totally-
And we had to, I had to submit a survey and go through kind of everybody's trainings and certificates and let them know which teachers we've sent to Orton, who's got a 30-hour, who's got a 70-hour, who's done complete reading
Right,
series.
we're feeling that- probably 6 years ago. Yeah, 2 week up in Peachtree Corners.
Mhm.
Oh, no, I did it with
Over the
Josie.
summer.
We do one here. We did one with Josie where she came in and learned too. That's what's
They,
getting.
training you more for that whole initiative next year?
My hope would be yes, but again, at Brandon, we just kind of do our thing.
Okay.
We go into it no matter what.
Yeah.
So next year, our biggest thing right now is that year 2 teachers are getting gifted certified because you have to do that year 2. And then next year, once they do gifted, we have to kind of pace out the training. Then we'll start getting our new teachers into some Orton training. And then our year 2 teachers are also finishing up complete reading series. We kind of have like a.
I want to have summer sessions this past summer on the, for Orton Gillingham.
I know, and I don't know if we can send our teachers to that.
We could, it just filled up.
Okay, sometimes they have to be funneled through title funds, and if you're not a title school, then they don't.
Yeah, they get priority.
On from this really quickly. If you just thought, oh, that's a lot of training that we send our teachers to, I just want to point that out when we talk about the importance of retaining teachers. Because when we spend money on training teachers and then they take their training and they go, we have to spend that on somebody else. We have to take that time. So when we talk about retaining teachers, it's not just because we really like them and they're so great. It's a financial investment we're making in these teachers.
It's a lot.
And we train them on a lot of things. They get IB training, they get gifted training, they get the reading instruction training. There's a lot of things that we do before it's mandated. And that's part of what makes us great, but that's also what we keep people here.
Yeah, in year 1, we backed off a lot of that, and we just train our teachers through APS trainings and mentorships, and we're not sending them to a million places. Then year 2, we push them to get gifted certified, and then the complete reading series starts shortly after that. And Orton is up to kind of anybody. We have a lot of teachers up here that got trained. Colleen in 5th grade, some 3rd grade teachers that don't have to teach phonics, but wanted to learn that. Let me go through a couple more of our strategies. Introduction and progression of foundational early literacy skills, phonics, morphology. Teachers have been trained in foundations. They don't have all the resources yet. They're waiting on teacher kits. This has to do with 3rd grade. Like we're still in kind of a holding pattern, but we're going to get that lifted soon.
I think we have them.
We got the kits now. We didn't get them because as soon as I did this with my boss, he was like, hold on a second. The kits were here like a day later.
Yeah, I think we're starting after things.
But we have identified students who need to be in the group, so we can use our intervention time for that. The key is to continue, it's generally K2, but if we can roll it into the 3rd, we're catching a lot of those new kids that came in who just are already a little bit behind. Planning, implementation, and monitoring of transdisciplinary model with a focus on ELA, science, and social studies, integrating those together. Action step is in progress, been training teachers about integration, has to do with these IB planning days. 5th grade, we have a whole partnership with science person who wrote the units for us, and it's all embedded with literacy and math. They're planning on using those resources. Once the planning phase is complete, they will implement learning walks to continue to strengthen integration. In 3-5, teachers are identifying where integration can happen. They want to see teachers using the IB language more, which you can see them what we did today, right? This is the due dates. This is what we've already sort of done: core knowledge, IB units, wit and wisdom, scope and sequence, differentiated small groups. Okay, so this is our check-in. This is me telling our boss at APS what we've started doing with our plan, as these were already in there. If we haven't done something by January, like we take it out. Like you can take it out. We can't do everything. I'm going to go through a couple more, and then we have math too. Here's numeracy. So that was literacy with those big ones. Is basically phonics, introducing, getting our getting our kids to 75% proficiency starts at the early grades, starts with that phonics, starts with that early literacy, but we're still teaching 3-5, like wit and wisdom, and writing is big. But we didn't put writing in our goal. Like that wasn't part of our continuous improvement plan to focus our early literacy skills. Like that's what we want to build it up. And the 3rd. Talk about math. One more. These are the goals. Progress monitor and assess using Godot, scope, and sequence to assess standard proficiency. The first focus was looking at formative assessments that were provided and adding additional rigor. They're working a unit at a time. We talk to our teachers. They're going through the assessments. I sit in the PL, not so much K2, but I'm in the 3-5. We look at the pre-assessment, we look at the post-assessment, we take it, and then we sometimes rewrite it because, there's only 4 questions. And we're like, how's that gonna measure the whole, so we'll add some stuff in, we provide feedback. It's a little bit around that internalization, like doing it first before we ask our kids to do it, right? Math has been, we know where math has been this year, and shout out to our teachers for sticking with the plan. In progress, July, December, creating an assessment map for unit assessments. August, unit lesson internalization. Kind of read September, May, observe implementation of differentiated instruction. We're going to look at the winter math assessment, kind of figure that out. 66% of students' grades will score proficient and above on the math projected score indicator. That's just a monitoring phase, right? Where we want to be. So if we get to 66, then we raised 4% by the time we hit
And we started at
August
62.
62. But that that's where we want to be in January. So in the springtime, we can, try and get to what was that 74%. Build teacher capacity grade levels a little bit cut off. I'm sorry. So let me go to the next slide and see if it's in there. On standards through lesson internalization and instructional planning. Main campus does a lot of this. Topper has them all bringing in 1 unit or 1 lesson. They come in, they teach the grade level, they tell them what materials they need. It's not the first time they're teaching it when they roll it out to the kids, right? Last PLC, teachers are teaching through the progressions. Teachers are taking the lead with the work. Just a little bit around the timeline.
So do we think next year will be easier?
I think,
No.
Yeah.
I had a great, no, I think the teachers are doing a great job, but I think that second year is always going to be easier, right?
Like they got such a front end.
One thing that's gonna be interesting that we've got to find out is that, is the workbooks that we get from Envisions, if they're gonna be more updated now that they've got more time. I don't know.
So I was in a principal meeting yesterday, and the big thing, we met with Godot. We went through the Godot Insights website. I don't know if you guys know around that one, but it's basically the entire math progression with all the worksheets. It's a book. It's a text. And we said, like, why can't we use that? She said there's been school systems in Georgia that have printed out and made basically a textbook out of all the Georgia DOE stuff, and that's their math progression. And we talked about like Envision, like how do we know? They know that's a struggle. But I don't know if that's something that we're going to be having next year. Like I don't know if the APS is going to make a shift to more of the Godot and more of the worksheets. Like that's. Go ahead.
So Envision, now that we've, okay.
Wait a minute.
So the pacing of Georgia doesn't align with Envision pacing, right? So what was shared with us was like, okay, well then just, you know what, they want you to teach graphs, start on unit 8. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the workbook page, like opening up to something in March and looking at like the way the directions are lined up for a first grader or the amount of words on a page, something like that. It was a mess.
Yeah.
Once we finally got to working on adding and subtracting, which was the second unit. Once we started doing that out of Envisions and we were on like 1 or 2, we were like, oh, this Envision's awesome. We love this. The online resource is great. The flow of the lesson is great. The amount of work in the workbook pages, like this is a perfect 1 day. Open up with this, move on to this, guided here, do it this in small group. Like that I love. And then what we've kind of found with the Godot lessons is that, because we do still incorporate them in, is that some of them are gold. And we're like, yeah, this is great. This is something I would do with my kids anyways, or this is something we've been doing for a long time. And then some of them were like, yeah, kind of fell flat, or it's a little more, you really just got to dive through it. It's a packet. Like if we ever clicked on a link and you looked at it, you'd be like, I'm sorry, where is the lesson and the activity? Like, so there's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff. If we switched all the way to Godot, I think that would be worse than refining what we have right now. And we've even today, we had our IB planning day today too in first grade. Today we were going, I know next year what I'm going to do for that first week of school is I found the pages and Envisions that fit with what we should have been doing. And
You gotta write your own curriculum.
we've got the tools. It's like a Lego set. We've got to build. We've got all the pieces. We just are learning what goes where and how to use it. And I think every teacher is phenomenal at understanding how to problem solve and work what they have. So I think people are starting to do it.
We're kind of like on our feet doing it, like just as we're teaching, which is very difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why this internalization piece for math is so important, that you can try to look at it before, because it's a lot.
But I would not encourage, I would tell you, if you're in a principal meeting that asks about that again, I would probably say.
Well, I don't know if they had mentioned anything. What we did talk about was an assessment. So we have yet to see an assessment that is going to be aligned to the new math standards, like the Georgia milestones, right? And we're like, how, I mean, we can keep giving math, we can keep giving the end of unit assessments, but how am I going to know if these kids are picking up these new standards? Well, there's a thing called Beacon in Georgia. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the Georgia DOE assessment, and they actually have assessments. It's been around a while, but for some reason, APS does not have it. Like, they don't have it. All the principals are like, but every other cluster or district has it. So my advice would be, if you want to advocate for our school, we need an assessment platform that Georgia DOE creates called Beacon, where a kid can sit down and take a 60-minute math assessment, and we can actually see where they are. I'm not sure. We just talked about it a lot yesterday. I've heard it. But
It's a Georgia department.
it's a Georgia Department event.
Only math?
No, they have it for all ELA science, K to 12, like it's all the way through.
Does it all?
I think it's paid for by the state. I'm really not sure why APS does not have it. I know my boss has asked for it a million times. We kind of got the runaround on it yesterday, but we need to find some type of assessment that's aligned to the new standards that we can give prior to the Georgia milestones and be able to score it that way. We were hoping kind of progress learning could do that, but we were hoping that like math is going to give, it's not a great tool for that. And math is going to give us where they are based on the map, growth percentiles and everything. But it's just something to think about. Let me keep going though, because it's already 4:00. We talked about planning. It's okay. I love having these conversations with parents, but I want to keep moving. Planning, implementation, monitoring, the inquiry-based instructional framework. That's the 5E model. That's kind of that new way of teaching math. Explore, engage, elaborate, evaluate, explain. There they are right there. It's just, again, that has to do with making sure that our teachers understand what they're teaching and how to teach it. Again, that's the monitoring. Action steps that are still in progress, we're still internalizing, selecting and vetting resources like assessments and progress monitoring. Like, we need to have that beacon. We're trying to figure something out like that we can give. Standards mastery tracker, that was something we put in there. Map growth standards, mastery drill down, go formative, progress learning, kind of seeing like what kids have in real time, because it is difficult to pull kind of a math assessment that Godot gives that may be 4 to 8 questions, and really know where those kids are. But math will tell us if, that type of growth. And math seemed to be pretty aligned to the milestones, but this is a new year. ELA vary. There's no writing in the math though, so we missed that writing piece. And the math we know is different. I'm going to keep going. This is whole child. Remember our goal. Creation and implementation of shared responsibilities. We have them. I don't see them in this room, but they're in every classroom. I actually talked to our 5th graders about it today, every classroom. We talked about our 5 most random responsibilities. Doesn't matter if you're in pre-K or 5th grade, right? Be a team leader, be a team player, right? Be an active listener, be ready to learn, be safe, be respectful. Like, those are everything that our kids need to do. And the goal was to have that continuity across, so there's not different expectations anywhere you go. We've made those expectations for media center using the same 5, cafeteria, hallways, all of that. We did a classroom walkthrough. We monitored the IB checklist. We made sure all the classrooms had it, that kind of thing. WCI team, that's the new CARES team, if you remember that word. But now it's the whole child intervention team. Is reviewing fast best data, determining which children are extremely elevated. We look at attendance. We use Mindy and her data, and then SEL strategies to connect with children. At the time, Fast Best was still being administered, but now we have that data. Maybe Mindy can give us a 30-second blurb on what we do every Monday morning at 8 a.m.
Yep, 8:15, we have a couple of dashboards through APS Graphs that tell us, give us a risk index. They also give us an engagement index. And we just look at that data and see who, right now we're going through grade level by grade level just to identify some kids and look at who's at risk for academics, who's at risk for attendance and the VASC, and then kind of decide what supports need to be in place.
You guys do not have to give me a number right now, but I would like to know about how many kids are in that elevated category that we're trying to reduce.
Great question. So let me write that down and I'll get that out before the next one. I want to say, as a school, the percentage is around, I had it. It's less than 10%, obviously, but I want to say 4 to 6%, and it gives you that number. Because I have that dashboard, but I do think it's important to know and what they are on the grade levels, right? Build teacher capacity for support via restorative practice, conflict resolution. needed support with restorative practice, the SEL department can support this area. You know, we're hoping to have that done by December, but we haven't yet, but we have reached out to Lindsay, SEL. She comes in, she talks about what restorative practices are. Remember, the kids that have the behavior issues, or the kids that have poor attendance, or the kids that have academic issues is always very closely tied to our highly elevated students. We don't really have a lot of kids that are just perfectly great with everything, but then all of a sudden their best is super low. There may be one or two, right? And we want to support them as well. But it is all very tied closely. So those were our quarterly check-ins with our goals and our bosses and APS wanting to know where we stand with everything. Now I want to talk about our strategic plan. This is our old strategic plan. I'm going to give you a copy of it because I think it's important to have a hard copy if you just want to pass it around. So you can see because it's a lot of small writing. Okay.
Please pass out my glass.
I know.
You see who's over 35 and
Okay. By the end of the FY23 school year, now our goals prior to this were very focused on our subgroups. And it was very much like, hey, if you can move your subgroups, you're going to move the whole school. And that was a strategy that's great. But when we did our CIP, our focus was more around the whole school. And I think we can then drill down as our action steps of what we're going to do to support our special populations. So this is like the first draft, the old draft. We wanted to get to 43% reading proficiency for our Black and African American students, and we met that. And we were at 52%. We did a great job. And if you look at our CCRPI, you're going to see I won't give it away, but you're going to see that our African American population met their target.
In the fall.
In the Georgia milestones
Oh,
last year. This is all Georgia milestones. Okay. This is all Georgia milestones. So that would be spring of last year. So we met that goal anyway. So we could probably adjust that. The math one, we're still not even at 26% with our African American. They're at like 24, 25%. So, you know, but that was a goal. And then we had our best, our WCI goal. I always put our mission and vision up there because it reminds us that we want to make sure that we give every student what they need to be successful. You kept reading. And that's important. But then you can see our strategic priorities ranked 1 to 11, not really ranked though. It's just kind of just how they're laid out according to the 4 areas over here. Student mastery and math, science, and social studies. I think that's a focus. How are we getting there? We'll look at 1A, utilize Eureka math curriculum. Guarantee the effective delivery of Eureka math. And ongoing professional development. But we didn't put anything in there necessarily with social studies or science, right? That's an old one. You also don't see the word ELA. Number 2, ensure students are reading on grade level and showing growth that pertains to ELA. The biggest grade level is 3rd grade. Our kids need to be, 90% of them need to be reading on grade level. Like that's the year that kids need to show they can read. And that's the biggest push in APS right now.
Are you saying 3rd grade?
We did not, we weren't 90%. We didn't get that award. I know that. We were not. 90% of our 3rd graders or 4th graders of this year were not reading on grade level.
What is it?
We were at 71% proficient with ELA, and usually students that are reading on grade level is a little bit higher than that because you can be developing and still be reading on grade level. I don't have that actual percentage, but I would say we're close to it. On the Georgia milestones, when we get the report, you literally get a plus or a minus. And a plus means that child's reading at that lexile they're supposed to be on.
Okay, so
Or a minus means they're not. So I would have to go in there and look. Yeah, a lexile is a number to measure reading. You look on the back of books. It's lexile. You have a stretched band. You want kids to kind of be in the middle, but you also don't want them to be reading at the bottom of their lexile. You want to push them. So in 3rd grade it's a 670. In 4th grade, it's an 840, and 5th grade, it's a 920, and you can see how it goes up. So those passages on the Georgia milestone are all around that 630 number, and that's where we want our kids reading. But yeah, so we showed great growth in ELA, but we just still didn't have 90% reading on grade level. That's hard to do, but it's definitely doable.
That's the ultimate goal.
I would say that's our goal. I mean, this is the ultimate goal is going to be the 76%.
Yeah.
But if you're getting 90% of your kids reading on grade level, then you're getting it.
Schools in APS have 100% of their, I mean, I can only think of maybe.
I can tell you who won it, Jackson.
And Morningside.
Morningside, Bolton had a huge jump in literacy.
Okay, so a huge jump in literacy is different than 90% of your school population on grade.
They got a literacy award for 3rd grade for reading on grade level. Mhm.
90, okay.
That'd be third graders from current.
We're current fourth graders. Springdale Park, Mary Lynn. We were probably the one like school that wasn't there, but again, we're a little different than those four. I mean, we're not quite on the same like diversity.
We are, but I don't
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
put that out there.
I agree. I'm competitive myself. I'm gonna keep going down. Number 4, special ed. Take a look at our special ed resources. This is a big one because we had to hire 5 new special ed teachers.
Yeah.
So how do we keep those teachers? Like we might want to think about a little bit of that. Implementing progress monitoring adequate resource blocks for eligible students. Just gonna give a spoiler though. Our special ed students actually did hit their state targets. And not only did they hit it, they like exceeded it. So they get a little yellow star like the speeches. And so you get a green flag and then a yellow star on top of it, which was surprising to us because I didn't feel that growth during the year. But the reason they hit their targets, remember, it's because it's a moving target. So it was a low target, right? It was very low. It was based off the year before. And if they hit that, they get a green flag. If they exceed it, they get a yellow star. So targets are based off of prior years. So our target for special ed this year is going to be even higher, and we have to continue to hit that. Just keep going down, increasing academic growth. That focuses on the growth. Please take a look at some of these on the side on your paper if you need to, because these are some of the things that I need some feedback on. Building systems and resources to support the IB, PYP, DLI. Gifted is a big one. Got a lot of parents that are telling me that we need more supports in gifted. Okay, I do. I do love that Carla is here and she is back to pulling kids, but it really is once or twice a week for like 30 minutes. The teachers are gifted certified once a week for 30 minutes. It's only here, not at PC.
I think we could be over identifying gifted kids.
We were actually low.
Over identifying is probably hard to do because it's hard to get into gifted. I think we're
It's
under
only 30% of our school.
30.
Our numbers are down this year. And what I would also tell you is that we would never want to under-identify because it is a lot of funding.
I know
Do
it's
get
a
a
lot of funding, but I mean, isn't having like 90% of like on grade level reading more important than?
Yeah, remember gifted has to do with the creativity though. It's really different.
Yeah, it's like, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like academic, you can't
No.
just look at academics, like they're looking at. the
A lot of
whole
parents see it.
They do.
We need to change that
Yeah.
conversation.
You have to explain it,
Right,
that
but
it's
it's
what
not
it actually
yeah.
is.
Some of the
I'm-
smart though,
I have 3 kids, very
Or
different,
just the way that they.
and they all tested
not
very differently.
smart.
I mean,
The
listen,
smartest kids
70,
did not.
71% of our kids are showing, like academic success based on the criteria that we set for them. We have a large percentage of students, 30%, mostly African American and special ed, that are not reading on proficiency that probably could be gifted if we gave them a test that was relevant, culturally relevant to
Yeah.
what they know and what they learn. So when you say over, I think we're under identifying kids because I would love to see more of our Black students in gifted. But what holds it back is the math test, the proficiency, but they may have the creativity, they may have the motivation.
Is that an APS like?
That's a conversation that has been
The
had
same.
across the country for years.
They did move to a more inclusive,
Model.
assessment for the cognitive aptitude. We moved to the
The initial one is for,
And
you
she
moved
was
to
an old
non,
gifted teacher, so
you moved to the nonverbal assessment for cognitive ability, which, has just been shown to be more equitable. Just across the board. And then for second look students, they use the more traditional, like, COGAT assessment for mental ability. So like, I'm interested to see, like, you said it was, we had like lower numbers this
Yeah,
year.
our numbers are lower for identification this year than typically. But I would like to say this too, that part of our problem with the parent concerns is the communication that we're putting out there.
Yeah.
And so when we, a lot of us have been through the gifted training and certification or whatever, and when we went through there, there's different accepted models that are allowed in the state, and we currently implement like 3 of them. And the fact is that parents don't understand that, like, just our IB instruction alone, like just having those transdisciplinary, concept-based units, that is a form of gift. That is an acceptable.
this
form of
right here, this gifted implementation, when you talk
Right.
about a visual thinking routine, that's a gifted teaching strategy that all of our students are getting.
Flexible pacing. So like putting your kid on Lexia and letting them work on their level. I have
Personalized
first
learning.
graders, yeah, personalized learning. I have first graders working on third grade phonics skills and reading skills on Lexia because they're ready for it.
Yeah.
So that is another acceptable form. We're doing both of those. Okay, so then we can add in other things, right? Higher order thinking skills, which we're implementing in first grade with in small group instruction with our gifted kids at least once a week. That is another form. Like we keep dumping on more and more, but because we're not pulling them out and saying, this gifted time, right? Then they're like, it's not happening. So now what we have, I'm not joking you, we have a stamp and I have to stamp a sheet
Who bought that?
and send gifted and send it home.
I used to do that.
I'm not gonna lie, I bought a gifted stamp for every homeroom so parents can see that the piece of gifted has to be class.
Well, how do I stamp this conversation?
Yeah.
Lesson I just did. So we're part of our job, part of your job is proving you're doing your job. Part of our job needs to be that we're proving that we're doing it and educating the families more. But I also think that it is so super important that we do it well.
Newsletter.
That we do it well, because what happened, if you all looked at our data for over, 10 years, that distinguished band keeps getting smaller and smaller, and that needs to go back. Our overall proficiency score doesn't change that much, but our distinguished band's gotten smaller, and we need to build that back up. And that's taking those kids who are proficient and moving them to distinguished.
I mean,
That's
we have space. We do have space though in our school to create more time in the schedule for teachers to be able to not have the wit and wisdom lesson necessarily, or the Godot or the math lesson necessarily, and give them opportunities to do more STEM-like activities, more like open-ended, critical thinking, like stuff that just takes a lot of instructional time. And so like giving like just space to a classroom teacher within the day to be able to, maybe not necessarily to just those kids, but to all kids, and like
that's what we
opening
see.
it up, but we need to create.
The problem is when all the kids get it, people don't realize that it's,
Special for them.
But right now, we don't really have necessarily.
Well,
Like-
so I would also say that wit and wisdom actually was another one of those.
it pushed us to
It has
distinguished by 12% the first year we did with
Lines of inquiry is another acceptable form of gifted
distinguished.
instruction. And so Eureka had deeper lines of questioning, and wit and wisdom had it, and those alone are also acceptable gifted models. So we lost Eureka, but I do think once we get more comfortable with Envision, I think that the open-ended problem solving kind of piece of it work. But I hear what you're saying.
I just like that more open-ended, like giving kids like opportunities to create their own projects and to do their own inquiry, and that space doesn't necessarily exist.
We're always trying to cover, when you focus on everything, you're focusing on nothing. I want to say that when we talk about this plan though, but I hear what you're saying, right? Like we're focusing on math, this and reading and this and this and that, then when does the time come to?
And
really
that's
focus
really
on
what's gonna move kiddos from that proficient to that more distinguished, is like developing those critical thinking
And I would
skills.
propose that IB
Y'all are making great conversations.
Yeah.
I would propose that an IB reevaluation year would be the time to look at that kind of work to be done in the classrooms. There.
I like it. No, you did great conversations. What I'm hearing is we need to push our high kids higher, but we also need to pull our low kids higher. So we got these two ends of the spectrum that we have to meet with a strategic plan. So keep that in mind. Oh, you also can't forget your middle people, right? We got 20% of our kids sitting in the yellow, which is developing. Got to move them over too. So that has to do with moving everybody kind of one achievement band from beginning to developing to proficient, and then proficient to distinguished. Okay. I just want to keep going down. Increasing opportunities for student engagement, increasing staff engagement and retention, building culture through staff leadership. If these do not align with these, and in some senses they may not, then we just need to make some adjustments, and we can give that feedback on these pieces of paper in a minute. Building teacher capacity in core content areas, that has to do with, I honestly think it's shifted a little bit on this for some reason. So when I look at increasing staff engagement and retention, but then I look at 10A, implementing onboarding and mentoring the staff roles, that probably should be more aligned to that. So I'm not sure how the numbers maybe got messed up, but like when you give feedback today, or over the next couple of weeks, just make sure that the ones on the far right just align to the ones on the left. Because it seems like it might be a little off. Maybe that's just me.
Because some of these don't.
Is
Yeah.
Eureka still?
No, this is the old, this is the old.
Is this is this the first old one?
That's the first old one.
Okay, so this is what we started with last fall.
Yeah, this is the new one. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you in a minute.
The one that we worked on.
Yeah.
last year.
This is the one we worked on last year, but also some stuff that I've already added on to this year.
I'm so excited. I know.
Yeah, some of that, this is like old. This is old. All right, so we this is the one I have now that is my newer one, but just make sure it's still aligned because honestly, we haven't really looked at the strategic plan as much. We really look at the continuous improvement plan now from like our admin team. This is like this is like the public one. And it drives funding. Keep going down, deliver faculty training. All right, and that's our strategic plan that you have in front of you. Let me make sure I'm back on the screen. All right, got 3 action items here. Are all the CIP goals reflected in our strategic plans? The CIP goals are those 3 goals I said. If not, which goals aren't? Okay, I didn't see a lot of WCI aspects
Yeah,
in
that's what
there,
I said.
right? So we may want to think about that. What progress has been made towards these priorities identified in our strategic plan? What evidence and data do we have? We talked a little bit around that in the CIP check-in. But for strategic plan, we want to look at like what we've done so far, if anything can be taken out or needs to be added. Based upon available data, are there any other adjustments we need to make to our strategic plan? I will tell you, we need to make some adjustments. This is a plan that we're going to put out to our community, and they're going to know the GOTeam wrote it. And we want to make sure it reflects kind of everybody's need in 11 priorities, okay? There's a lot of needs. Everybody wants a little piece of the bucket, remember? DLI, Gen Ed, special ed, gifted, what am I missing?
Intervention.
MTSS, intervention, right? Language learners, you know, those are all different subgroups that if we look at the top right corner, we need to make sure that we're giving every student what they need to be successful. This is a newer one that I worked on.
It's updated. So.
A little bit of updated by me,
Okay,
but it needs to be more updated.
okay.
And-
Because it's got the max stuff on.
Yeah, take a look on this one. If it's capitalized, I made some adjustments. So in a second, I'm gonna break you off and we're gonna do about 15 minutes of writing. 1A, utilize the Godot math scope and sequence. See how I changed that out. 1B, guarantee the effective delivery of Envision math by providing adequate time, resources, and opportunities. We want to change that to Godot. 2A, scaffold literacy learning through guided reading, foundations implementation, OG, and wit and wisdom curriculum. Those are words that we didn't see on the old one. 3A, using common assessments, Godot math, wit and wisdom, ELA, right score. That's a big writing assessment we give now that wasn't on the other one. To help progress monitor student learning using a data protocol, internal remediation and extension. I'm gonna jump down to 5A. 5 was building systems that increase academic growth, create targeted PL opportunities focused on CIP and strategic plan goals. See, I probably adjusted that based on the other one, but I don't know if that necessarily aligns to that number. We need to figure out what that alignment is. And I can do some of that on my own too. 6B, implement vertical alignment to assure high quality enhanced IB PYP implementation on staff PL days. Something that we started doing. Vertical alignment, remember, is like second and third grade together, third and fourth together. But let me go down to 8B. It looks like I adjusted that one. Prepare for new IB reauthorization. We need to put something in there around IB because we are up for our 5 years next year with an emphasis on self-study by ensuring matters to be addressed, that's MTBA, have been fully implemented. But that's tied to staff engagement and retention. So like we need to like make sure those are the right numbers. See, I don't know why that got so off.
60 is.
Yeah, I think we're like one number off on each. So I can make sure the alignment is there. My big thing is making sure that we know what number these go to. So we need to draw some arrows to them if you can, and I'll make those adjustments. Those are the big ones I did. And if you look up top, the 3 goals, I changed them out. So you can see now our CIP goals up there on these top 3 corners, which weren't there before. It had those like old subgroup targets when we already met the ELA one and we didn't meet that, but I went ahead and made it like school-wide growth to put that in there. All right.
Okay, what are we using to assess growth in,
Good question. For social studies, I would focus on more so the transdisciplinary piece. Third grade's a tough one. 4th and 5th are very aligned to wit and wisdom. But I know third, we're not, the social studies unit is not under the sea or outer space. Great reading and writing activities, but it's not that aligned. Fourth grade, American Revolution isn't completely embedded in what they're reading, or fifth grade does the civil rights and Buddy Not Buddy. A lot of social studies is embedded in wit and wisdom or second, but that may be something to think about. Also, you can't do everything. Social studies is so important, I get it. But is that a measure that we're measured on?
That's fine, like.
Is that, is that, I hate to say it, but is that in, is that gonna be reported out in the CCRPI? No. I mean, you're getting ELA and math and only science for fifth grade. That's it. No more. But we can't forget about social studies because that is very important. Such a good. I wanted to hold off before I put these up because there's so many things I wanted to remember where I put them. So that's the first one. Are all CIP goals reflected in our strategic plan priorities? If not, what CIP goals are missing or should be added? I'm going to divide you into 3 groups. We're going to rotate through. Okay.
What is this area for?
That's action steps, I want to say. The action steps may need to be adjusted a little bit. So you can write some feedback on there for me. The next one, I'm going to put, I'll just leave it up here. Go ahead on this. What progress has been made towards the priorities identified in our strategic plan? What evidence or data do we have? The priorities are the 11 ones, right? The 11. So this one, we can look at number 4. Ensure special ed students are making yearly gains in literacy rates and state targets for ELA. If CCRPI wasn't embargoed, then I would talk about the growth that we made for special education students exceeding their goals, right? We have to continue to do that. We're onboarding and supporting 5 new special education teachers that are highly qualified, that have certifications in special ed, which we didn't all have last year. Just a few things like that. So you're gonna tell me what progress we've made on this one. And the last one we did, based upon the available data. And again, we've had a lot of data, but I'm not gonna drown your brains with all that data we've talked about this year with math, but just kind of know where we are right now at the start of the year. When we came in with ELA, and we're right around 72%. Like we're wherever we need to be. We got to get to 76. And then for math, we came in lower. We're at 62%, but we got to get to 74. Okay. You're going to say, based on the data, are there any other adjustments we need to make to the strategic plan? I don't have a ton of data on science. We are about to take the math assessment starting November 27th, and fifth grade will take a science benchmark on math now. It's the first time they've done that in this one here.
They did it in the fall, but they'll give us.
They did do it in the fall.
Yeah, but I mean, it'll be the first growth.
It'll be the growth, and we'll be able to see. Science is tough because you give it in the fall, but the standards are still like ELA standards carry over. Like I can tell I got to write, and then I got to add elaboration, and I got to be able to do. But like science, like it's like social studies, like they're not going to give circuits or life cycles in 4th grade. So they take that in the beginning of the year. They're not going to know what it is. You know what I mean?
Jay, we're gonna have that winter math data before we meet again to go.
The goal is yes. Math is November 27th. I'll have that data real time. And between November 27th and what's that Friday? Is that December 1st?
Yes.
I will have all of ELA and math.
And our next.
In our math that we approve on the 7th.
Okay.
So we will have that for all the kids that took it. Now you have makeups and you have kids that come in late. But we'll have the bulk of it.
After Thanksgiving, you have all.
Yeah,
So
we
by
should.
December 1st.
But it's also like it's a lot of pressure on that one group of data set, and we just need to look at it with an open lens and see, hey, maybe we crushed it, or maybe it's been 4 or 5 months of instruction. What do we need to do second semester?
With math being where it is from the beginning of the year and what we're all coming in with the shift in standards, I think all teachers are really anxious to see how that
Right,
goes.
you're right. And we don't have an assessment. Math is not aligned to like what the Georgia standards are. Beacon was the only thing that I heard of that is an assessment.
You have seen a correlation with math and.
You're right, we did.
So who knows, but it's the best we got.
Best we got. It's not that far off, so. Okay, so here's what I want to do. We can do Ashley and Kim, and we can do Lena and Ina, and then we can do y'all 3. So why don't we just all start at a different one, and we'll spend. You know what? Actually, maybe we should divide y'all up. Let's do. Why don't you work with Kim?
Okay.
Okay, and then Ashley, you can work in this group. So we have a teacher in each group that can kind of feed some of the feedback. All right, it is. It is, what time is it?
4:32.
Okay, it's already 4:30. All right. We're not gonna get it all done today, and I know we have discussion items, so I'm just gonna give you about 3 to 5 minutes in each area, and then I want you to know what these questions are, and you are completely encouraged, and I will follow up with an email to all the GOTeam, so LaJoy and Tom can get feedback. Take picture if you want. Yeah, we'll do 3 minutes and we'll rotate. Let's do, why don't y'all start on that one, Ashley and Mindy. And then why don't we do Kim and Lena on progress? And then why don't we do y'all three on available? This is the plan. So what adjustments do we need to make to the whole thing? I would leave it all, and I would leave it.
Okay.
I know there's going to be a little more online, but if you see increased opportunities for student engagement, where is that on there, or what else do we need to do on that? Look at maybe 1 or 2 that you feel like we need to.
We're up in game.
I'll send some drafts out, and a lot of this will be done probably on my own, and then you will control that.
Yeah. So, targeted on subgroups and
Yeah. Remember, our white students are at about 97%. Okay, so if our reading proficiency overall is at 1%, we'll figure out where that gap is. Right? So it's going to be ourselves in certain numbers, not grade level. That's WD students, language learners, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, a couple.
they'll get to having core content with the LA. But we've done, we're doing that with. They bring on
So much to their academic needs, and I don't. All I see is.
Okay. Stop the screen share.
Well, no, that's for intervention.
Oh, we've also done accommodation needs and
Right.
So they're not specific.
Yes, so
Right.
we need to put that on.
So that's another. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're worried about this. Yeah.
What is it?
Actions.
Yes.
Just like trying to find it.
Yeah.
The
epitome of it. Yeah.
All right. Making sure everybody can see what we're working on here. I like that. That's good feedback. We need best written in there. Subgroup ELA, teacher capacity, competency. Good. Foundation, integrity, and math. We have one more group over there working. About 1 more minute, we're going to rotate.
That would be my basic.
Oh, that's it.
There is really one story on what that.
But that's not a CIP goal. That's not a goal. So I would focus on, what is here going to raise us 12%. That's our CIP.
No, I. Right. Are we.
You guys ready? Let's go ahead and rotate. We'll go counterclockwise. They just jumped to group 2 now. I'm gonna walk around and just provide a little feedback. I get that it is a lot, but the big thing for y'all is like starting the conversation and trying to learn a little bit. Yep. So we have, it's only CIP, so we have 3 goals: literacy 5%, math 5%, So what do we miss? And are these action steps going to get us to grow 5% in literacy or 5% in math? And if not, what are we missing? Go ahead, put it on there. If I see it twice. Do one more look around. Right. Are all CIP goals reflected in our strategic plan priorities? If not, what CIP goals are missing or should be added? What progress has been made towards the priorities identified in our strategic plan? What evidence or data do we have? Based upon our data, are there any other adjustments we need to make to our strategic plan?
You got a new list, Ben?
We got a 0.5. We'll talk about that, but that is something that we made progress on.
Right, okay. Like the
For
percentage.
ELA. We had 4% growth from 1 year to the next on milestones. We made it, and you probably don't remember it, but
IB, ELA, gifted, whole child, is that a good one or?
Okay, so we're right here.
one more minute. Oh,
Could a
Yeah.
Resource. Yeah.
For the whole child.
Yeah, perfect.
We'll be-
Okay. We're ready.
You guys are moving too slow.
Hi, we're bursting,
Ideas?
All right, let's go ahead and rotate last time.
Okay, what's this one? Towards the priorities identified.
So Maggie can maybe talk around a little bit about, so just like, we had growth across the school on milestones from 1 year to the next, 4% of reading and about 1 or 2% overall.
Yeah.
But was those are subgroups, not for reading. So we're talking about proficiency, we gained a little. But so the progress that we did have really good ELA growth from 2 years ago to last.
CI, the process, and they're not in the practice would be to evaluate.
Yeah, we had minimal growth. We did grow, but we had minimal growth. This is all progress though, but it isn't what we did.
Know that we have any actual action steps.
We did hire 5
Yeah, I
special
was gonna
education
say, we
teachers.
staffed up the sped team.
We staffed it up. We got another 0.5 self too, which helps with that. And
Okay,
support.
so staffed up sped team. 0.5 salt.
Like how,
You know, I can tell you for the faculty trainings to acquire certifications, a lot of these IB things that we're doing. And we also, we had those 2, PL days for IB teachers that went to Rivers. We had one in the spring, we have one more in the fall. I don't think you need, we sent about 14 or 15 meetings. They needed that for the certification.
like for example, so here
I think we're 3 to 4.
Is it
Like
more
I'm
levels?
reading.
If we do that, it can be big help.
Yeah.
So we're sure very, very, I used it for, yeah, it's amazing. Not just. Well, and your dad is doing a big part, like, which is really, the staff and therapy, teachers need to develop it.
Yeah.
But then, like, and they did show, it's so hard, I need plenty of use for this, care, seeing them at peace. Yes.
Is that going away?
So it's
He's the best person to ask. She's been going back and forth digging into that. And I'll be able to talk a little bit around like what our CARES funding is going to do.
Doctor?
like very.
Oh.
I see, we have that as a team, like that, we have that, I on the side, you know, I.
How much it is.
You need to tell me what's working, like, I just wanna know.
and 2 people signed in.
Like I can't just have to retire and move
Right.
over. I need to be able to
Right,
take the
no, I
same work and move over. We need more money.
Found our projections, right?
Hopefully our projections are okay. I was hoping the funding formula.
No, it wasn't.
Let's take it back to their.
We can get extra IB funding if we're not touching one,
Then you
but
can, like,
You get IB funding.
But remember, we don't get any different than another school.
Like, it costs us money, that is a.
Kids, I
It
think
costs
it's
us
the same
money
amount
for each.
IB money is.
That costs
The
us money.
300.
Yes.
That is a big.
All right, about 30 seconds, y'all. If you're done, you can.
I don't know, like trying to figure out.
Right.
Goals and action steps, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
another
And I
way.
would just say like data for, data on,
More of the,
we call it hazel bars.
Or thinking skills or something like that, like this.
Even just hard to feedback, they don't
Yeah.
use it, it's families, like it's half.
It's based,
They're really, really fast. So
yeah, it's that we're not showing it or articulating it,
Yeah.
and it's so stressful, as the child. Like, they're like, tell us how you're.
All right, guys, let's go back to our seats for a second, and we're gonna keep moving.
See, and do your kids ever?
I have stuff.
Okay, okay.
It's not there yet.
I don't know, she never does. She hates Claire. She hates, so she just summers. I have a kid's like, oh, let's go right now.
Okay, we are done with our brainstorming session. I'm just gonna go through them really quickly. Are all the goals reflected? Group one said more specific action steps for Bass Best. That's crucial. Don't forget Bass Best is also tied to kind of discipline supports, can also be tied into attendance. Like that's all sort of in there. So that's something that we need to look at. Group two, we're missing goals and action steps to adequately address our WCI goals, very similar. Could 8A include resources for this? I don't have 8A in front of me, but it's
a lot. UIP, DLI, gifted collaboration experience for all.
right. So you're at, they're also saying, could that be a resource for our best bet, which is good feedback. I like that. Maybe we could tie it in. Whole child extremely elevated. We need data on some of that Hazel Heart, Hazel Health, on maybe some of our school local data. If we have that, how many kids participate and which. But maybe, yeah, if it's going to be around, maybe we can increase our Hazel Health usage. If it's going to be around, that'll also help tackle our best best. That's always a big push.
This would be interesting, like when you do have like kind of numbers, like where do they like?
There's
Shake
all high
out.
school used it. Is it North Atlanta, #1 school that used Hazel?
But we used it, like we had.
We did, we're on the report.
We had tremendous.
We were one of the few elementary schools.
And why are we the one that's using it more than a lot of other schools? That's the thing.
Durant gets on it,
Mhm.
and Gillum gets on it, and we keep saying, parents. Fine.
Also, we talked about gifted and we talked about under identification. I had a thought in my head, it just came back. I was in a meeting, principal meeting, where one of the principals got up and went through the school demographics. And they have South Atlanta School, Title I neighborhood, intergenerational poverty, almost 400 kids, one student in the whole school is gifted.
Yeah.
One student, less than 1%. Yeah,
And I taught at.
and they have to share itinerant teachers for that. That means we have to.
Gifted? That was the gifted test.
Yeah.
That was a decade now. That's best, like when you get the breakdown of the kids, like how many are in third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, it's like especially the third.
I have that. I probably could open up a window now and tell you. that.
It's weird with that age.
It
group,
is.
like, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it changes.
Well, and
Yeah.
the feedback
We
we've
heard
heard.
an assessment like that to a kid.
Also the variability.
Say, don't go.
Like teachers, I will tell you, last year was really accurate because the teachers didn't know that they were going to be sharing the scores with the parents. But then as soon as the parents start reading those teacher ratings, all of a sudden you got to be a little careful because parents see that as a discipline report and teachers don't need to have 15 meetings after a bad test report goes home. So maybe it's not the best goal to measure on a WCI. We can talk about that next year. Like what's a better way to measure whole childhood intervention? I'm still looking. Discipline, attendance, all that fits. Yep.
And I think that's something that's been coming up is that, and you've heard me say this for too long. When we address those whole child needs, it shows up on the academics.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So if we want to hit the academics, we have so many things on here that talk about how to hit the academics. And we're coming at it from every angle except that whole child
Right.
side.
I will
On
say
this
this,
plan, we're doing it in the
Yeah.
classroom, we're doing it in the school.
reducing class size, we did that, and that is a huge.
Yeah, behavior referrals are almost like not existent, right?
We're gonna start fighting.
Yeah. But honestly, it allows you to give more the needed attention, and it allows that kid to feel connected to that class, to the teacher. That's whole child.
So what I'm hearing Mindy say is when budgeting comes around, we need to be smart around our projections, class sizes.
Yeah.
Because we got to make sure, so like the big thing is like, so second grade only has 6 teachers right now. They don't have the largest grade level. Every other grade level, K1 has 8 and 3-5 have 7. Second only has 6. But we got 160 first graders rolling into second.
Yeah.
So we've got to increase them by 2 teachers. But does that mean we gotta pull 2 off of third? And now third's down to 5 or 6, or can we still keep third at 6, or can we keep them at 7? You know, we have to really look at those class sizes. Because there's differing, you know.
I've just seen it benefit us in so many different buckets.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what progress has been made? We said our subgroup ELA went up. They remembered that. That's good on milestones from 2 years ago to last year. We had a 4% growth. Teacher capacity, core competency. We've done foundations, integrity, math. We talked about that. They remembered it. Group 2 said special ed department is fully staffed. That sounds like not a big deal, but that's a win. That's a win. Last year, I had a special ed teacher come in, talk for 1 week, and was gone.
It'll keep too, which is good.
Yeah, special ed, a lot of it is compliance, and I mean, those are legal documents. Those IEPs, a parent can take that to court and say, this is not being done. And we have to do our best, as always, to make sure that we're staffed. We have 5 great special ed teachers, and then don't forget, we added 2 autism classes. That's not even in here. I didn't put that because we weren't not staffed with that last year, but we were able to do that this year and find 2 great teachers. Third grade starting foundations, yes. That's a progress that we're doing. Math internalization occurring for new math units, yes, that's great progress. 3, making great growth in reading and ELA, low growth in math. So a baby step, but it was low growth. Need more data on BAS, and staffed up sped team, 0.5 self. Somebody remember that we did add another half-time self, which is a special ed lead teacher, which we never had. All of that helps with identification, data, compliance, exiting special ed, more timely communication with parents, like all that stuff helps. So Dr. or Ms. Hawthorne has been fantastic for us. Last one, based on our data, are there any other adjustments? We think we need a bigger focus on WCI goal and supports, maybe another school counselor, pull her out of double specials rotation. True, great feedback. We talked about with our staff meeting, we have an Otis index. It's an equity index that came out of this panorama survey that y'all did last year, but this year only the students and the staff are doing it. It's an equity survey. We were 8 out of 10 with equity, which I thought was great, but I don't know how accurate it really was. A lot of schools were struggling with those scores and saying the data wasn't right. But we didn't score high because we have 1 counselor for 900 kids. Like, hey, look at that. You know, it's like 1 for 500, 1 for 400.
I heard 1 for 300.
Yeah.
And especially with 2 buildings,
We really need
and we can't get rid of our social work. We need her too.
Guess what? How she's funded.
Cares.
Yeah. But that's a district decision. They're gonna figure out. I mean, they're gonna have to figure out how to get the money.
The cluster meeting, I said, does every child in North Atlanta have access to school, counselor during the day? Because if she's at one campus and not at ours, then no, they don't.
Point.
It's not, and that was when, what's his name? Was like, oh, never thought of that. Like every school has one, but as a dual
But not
campus.
every campus.
As a dual
Yeah.
campus school, we have to be reminding them of those pressure points and of those differences, because we're not the norm.
Yep. And I want to remind everybody, we only have 3 specialists in each building, right? And as we get larger and we have more kids, we send half the grade level to specials, but if you have 160 kids, that is, do the math, 80 kids going to specials with, only 3 teachers. So we have to think about where they're going for the teachers to plan. So we have to add in media and technology and counseling into those double specials days, because the whole grade level. So now we got 160 kids going to 6 places, but I didn't use money to buy new specialists. I utilized what we already had with a great media specialist in each building, someone else, and then a counselor. So we have to kind of just think about when the numbers go up, we have to hire specialists too. We may need another drama teacher or something to take these kids.
But in the past, when we've been in a bind, we've used a para salary, and we've said, you're gonna do this. And so then maybe it's technology, maybe they
do that with technology. But then I hear people don't love a para doing tech. Like the deal I hated language lab with.
What if?
But that's for a different reason. That's for a different reason.
Yeah, that's
a different reason. As a deal I had, my kid, all she did for 5 years was watch movies.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, that was a para that was doing that. They're not trained up. They don't have that.
He's not even in
Ryan's over here doing technology as a para salary. She's doing fantastic.
I think Leslie Thomas did a good job for her. But how much better is it now, though, honestly, that Miss Park is doing it and teaching?
GOTeam Meeting, there was something, they were talking about being creative.
being creative with the salary you have and doing two part-time
Person who's like.
and not have to pay.
Like,
the
whatever
benefits. So you're just
field is.
using the two part-time and then you're not having to pay benefits.
So maybe it's like a drama teacher,
Yeah.
you know, once part time
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Then Kara doesn't.
No, right.
If they're part time.
Yeah.
It's like,
So, we're all the right page. I did have an hourly teaching position, teaching. So that's the difference between an hourly para is $16 an hour, and hourly teaching is $35. Big jump. 29 hours a week. Like I was ready to roll it out. I allotted $12,000, but I couldn't find a retired teacher or a certified teacher that wanted to come back for any more than like 5 hours. Like they want to like be retired. They want, you know, so you have to just find the people not there.
It's like an artist.
Do the math. Do the math.
It's hard.
Thank
Where's our?
That's easy. You have to have that certificate. Like I want like a Mary Leathers, you know, or like a Tracy Hudson, Susan Ray. You know?
Take a new teacher or a teacher whose kids are in school, right?
Yeah, but don't forget the benefits are big for a lot of people. So if you're retired, you're getting benefits. Like an hourly teacher, like they have to get benefits. And that's the difference between.
And come and work part time during the day, pay them part time.
So all of that is doable. All I was trying to say was, as our numbers go up, we also have to think about staffing positions like outside of homerooms where kids go, like a counselor or like PE or music or art, because you can't shove 160 kids into 3 classes.
For buildings versus schools, like for counselors and things like that.
Probably. We're a charter system. We can do flexibility on anything.
Right.
Oh, because we have more kids.
If you think about, if they get one school counselor for 250 kids, we need 4 school counselors.
Well, school counselors are funded through my general budget, so I can do no counseling. Yeah.
We're saying we want to advocate for them.
APS.
You should have to fight for a school counselor.
Like
It's like
you identify. This is
cafeteria.
important.
Like they need to do with APS can do what they did for us for media specialists. And I'll give you an example. They allotted me 1 media specialist. I said, I got 2 buildings, and they built in, they put the other salary in my budget so I could staff. So they literally are, they're paying for, we have to do that for other positions.
That is what I want to consider.
Write it down here.
Larger schools, maybe larger, but you know, they're gonna say that's built into your SSF. You have more kids, you're gonna earn more money, and it's up to your GOTeam
But it's
principal to
not,
make that
it's
decision.
And it's more expensive.
Well, I just want to also say, I'm just being devil's advocate. We do get a large school stipend for the other building. So they add money in for Miss Nails, for Mr. Rock, for Miss Cole, and for a nurse. So they give me money for that to staff another building that I don't have, that doesn't come out.
I actually like to argue that Mr. Rock and Miss Nails and the nurse are sometimes having to play the role
Of
of
counseling.
counselor.
Yes, they are.
So we should be kind
All
of.
Let me keep rolling because I know we have a lot to get to. This is all great feedback, and I just want to remind everybody that I will take these charts and I will redo our strategic plan. I will send it to Thomas and LaJoy too, and give you that feedback. And I just need people to kind of look at it and say, adjust this or do that. And by the time we come back on the 7th, we just need to all sort of be in agreement. But if we come back on the 7th and we're still arguing about our strategic plan, then we need to come back again before we leave for break and make sure that we have that. And the goal is that's what we have to vote, because that's my last meeting before. We have to be approved by the time we leave for winter break. So we could, see what I mean? We only have one more meeting, so that's why there has to be then.
So if we're still not settled on the 7th.
If we're not set on the 7th, we'll probably need to come back. I think everybody's over.
What are we having? You're gonna tweak.
I'm gonna tweak all this based on our conversations today, our feedback. When we come back from Thanksgiving, I'm gonna send you my updated strategic plan that's aligned to kind of what you all are saying and thinking and hearing. And you're gonna kind of pick holes in it or just say, I like it, or let's vote on it. And we'll come in on the 7th. I'll bring that same plan. It's gonna be aligned to our CIP goals. And it's gonna be aligned to these 3 questions here. And if it doesn't work, we can do work sessions. So I can meet with Maggie on one day just for an hour and we can look through it together, or Mindy. And those are okay to do if you don't have a quorum. Okay.
I would say the one thing I don't think that showed up on any of these that I do think is important is having a either another action step or rewording an action step that addresses teacher retention. And I know that we have 11A.
Could you write something like that on here, even though it says CIP goals, when you have a chance?
Yeah.
Put something on teacher retention, because we've done a lot of work on teacher retention this year.
I really like what's going on with the mentor-mentee program.
Yes,
That's really.
like I gave it to Topper and she has taken it and run with it.
I think that's good. I think though that if we looked at who's leaving or who's
Special ed
in the past,
department, 2 years in.
specialists,
Special ed.
I think,
Specialist.
I mean, I actually think there could be a room for like an empathy and with a lot of people.
Look at you, empathy and you.
On that. I do.
And then,
Mindy's got her next job lined up. I mean, Maggie.
and so we're looking at like what would make somebody want to leave and what.
And I bet some of those things are easy
Action
things,
step too.
right? Like, and you're not gonna solve world hunger. But I think if the specialists feel like they got heard,
Yeah.
and maybe
Like
we pick
just,
2 things that they need, and maybe we find the PTA or the foundation and help fund them.
Yeah.
And that way,
I'm always shocked at what's the thing that breaks the camel's back. Like, what's the straw where it's like, that's one issue, now I have to believe it. You're like, that was so fixable. You know, like, wow, okay, all right.
You're right. Sometimes it's very fixable,
Yeah,
but sometimes
it's not.
Sometimes
it's
it's
not, know until they leave.
APS, we don't.
They share
Maybe
feedback
I-
with you? No?
No. I was gonna say, has any?
I've never gotten feedback, but HR does do an exit again. I learned that the other day.
But not with everybody.
I think,
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I've heard about it from people who've left.
we had an HR summit last week. I was told they do.
Like our
exit.
Coke.
I don't get that. I don't know. I wonder. I'm just kidding. We had a very high turnover last year. We hired 27 people. We hired, we hired,
Really crazy though.
it's not, we had like 6 retirees.
2 years in a row, that's a
Yeah.
little.
Right.
Yeah.
Bit of a
A
pattern
lot
that
of
we
these
wanna
people
stop.
didn't like others.
No,
Well, that's.
they got out of teaching.
That's pandemic, yes.
But that 27 hired, it includes new positions that didn't leave. And then also we had like 5 people that retired, you know.
So, but that's, I did put on here, this could support teacher retention goals and I.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that that's something we need to think about. It's like, there's some things we can do. We talked about this last year with smaller class sizes. There are some things we can do where it's one action plan, but it supports several goals.
Yes,
And I think supporting the whole child social emotionally
it's gonna hit.
supports a lot of goals. I think it supports academics. I think it supports teacher retention. I think it supports our BAS.
Totally attendance.
Sorry, I'm done.
All right, the last thing I want to show you, this is just our step. We, this was back in 2021. We did our last strategic plan in the summer of 23. We looked at our needs assessment, overarching needs. That should say 2023. 2020, fall of 2020. I don't know why that's 2021. School leadership completed our continuous improvement plan this year. We utilized current data and reviewed the possible updates to our CIP. And I did that with our APS and then with you all with our 3 goals. And then before winter break, that's the date, we will take action and vote on the school strategic plan and vote on the ranked strategic priorities for the SY 24-25 budget. All right. I just want to kind of put this one bug in everybody's ear, because this is what is going to drive our funding when it comes. I have full autonomy with staffing at Morse Brandon. Just want to be, and that's just something the GOTeam wants us to remind, that we can take feedback and everything, but the staffing will just come down to what I say. But I always listen to our community and our GOTeam and do the best we can. And hopefully that was evident last year. There's some things that I don't see on here that there are people that want to fund, right? Safety, security, those types of things need to be written into this plan if we're going to fund them. Okay. And it's just something to think about. You don't have to give me the feedback right now, but if you feel like there's a strategic priority that's just not addressed, and maybe we don't want to share with everybody, just send me an email and we'll talk about it. And we'll go through it that way. But if I don't see it in this plan and we can't tie it back directly to this plan, it's not going to get any money. Okay. And that's important to know. This encompasses, wide array of literacy and signature programs, and subgroups and best bets and the immediate things that school needs. But there are some operational things that parents want to see in the building that are not reflected on here. So I just want people to know that.
And the things that are on here that increase our CCRPI and increase our grade schools
Are data driven.
are data driven and they're mostly academic.
Yep.
It's those
Yep.
reading and math.
Yeah, you know, you allot funding to items that are not tied directly to strategic goals, then you run the risk of not reaching that goal. But the plus size is it makes our school appealing. I'm not gonna lie, like parents will see that. They want to send more of their kids here. You know, we begin to get larger enrollment. And when you have more enrollment, the data goes up. I mean, it does. You know, so there's other areas of way of looking at that. That I'll just use an example. If we had a police officer here, maybe a kindergartner who's choosing between Lovett and Brandon will come to Brandon. You know, I don't have the data around that. I don't. But that's what I hear people say. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna expand this. I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna hand it back over to Ashley. It is 5:03. I'm gonna let you go, Ashley. And if you have any talking points, and I know that Kim maybe wanted to talk about a couple things.
So we don't have any action items right now, so.
I just need you to go home.
Yeah. Any more discussion items?
You want to just know the great schools that you're working on it?
Yeah, so the great schools for, I don't know if you guys are. Data company out of
You know, staff meeting for a minute.
you did, I don't like San Francisco, but it's on all this Willow, you know, home ratings. And
Personally.
our rating went from 9 to 6, and when I questioned it, they gave us like a vague answer. And said they were using data
It's pre-pandemic to last year.
2022. So they're not even using 20, like everyone felt.
So you're talking around my first year here when we were 80% proficient for math and we were 71. You know, we actually have grown in ELA since even before I came. That's how we got wit and wisdom. But we're 80% proficient in math and our subgroups were scoring. Our school was just higher academically when we had 1,020 kids as opposed to having, 800 last year or something.
Yeah.
And then the equity gap for them was like, there's a big gap.
Yeah.
That's an equity score that gave us a low score. Like there's a gap in every school you go to. It's what are we doing to address that gap? And they didn't have the data to show that. And they're just like, well, present us with more data. I sent it to our data department and APS. They gave me a whole breakdown of numbers and all of that too, which we can talk about if we want to.
There are subgroups outperform other subgroups.
Yeah, I talked about what's a challenge. Do you know what a challenge is?
2 points. So I alerted the board members back. I questioned too. But we're kind of at like the mercy because it's like published on all the Schoolo stuff.
They're very responsive.
Yeah.
But they're data driven and they don't understand what happens in a school. They don't understand a challenge index, and that's that big line that is typical for your school. So Brandon would be right here, and it's a big bubble because we have more kids. This is the average, but based on our like free reduced lunch numbers and where we are, like on average, are our subgroups scoring below where they should or above? And we're actually like right on the line or above. So we're performing exactly where we should be, if not a little bit higher. There are some schools that are down here where subgroups are just not performing where they should be compared to other schools that are like.
Our subgroup that's not performing very in the district are our white students. That's what we've seen. Everybody else is outperforming.
And they're at 90.
Like when you see that bar, it's like
You're
we
right.
are like double where other schools are in the district with those subgroups, and our white students are below it. That's the only category.
That's true. It's true.
So,
But I don't want to alarm everybody about our white students because that just can't be our overall focus. But you're right. If you compare our white students against others in the district, they're a little bit lower. But you know what I would also argue with that? DLI students are supposed to be lower at this grade level. They are supposed to. They are supposed to be behind. DLI students are supposed to be behind in math and reading until they hit about that middle school years where they say that increase in cognitive demand takes them above everybody else. So I've always said
Data, like third, fourth.
I've always said like DLI is a great program and it really attracts people to our school. But if we had all those kids mixed in with the gen ed kids, I bet our data would probably be a little bit higher because they're pulling other people up. Maybe they've moved a little bit faster because they haven't been learning in Spanish. But the benefit of DLI, the immersion piece, is that 4th through 12th grade, they absolutely take off above everybody else. But K2, they are typically behind. Not necessarily our school. I don't know. I mean, our school, it's not apples to apples, but that's something to think about.
That, I don't know, just because we're not gonna solve great schools, great.
Yeah, I know.
whatever data thing, but some of that can be addressed as kindergarten people do tours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like publicly
I
telling
can talk
people
about
about
it.
it. No, I
Yeah,
won't talk
if you
about it
need
unless
to,
you get asked,
But if they ask about it, I'll address it.
Yeah.
To,
I mean, I asked if there was any
Or just
legal,
call-
like,
Yeah.
Just talk to you, well, here's what happened. Whoever asked about it, I always say, like, look at the CCRP, but that's more reflective of what's really going
I
on.
put a comment on the thing and I said, great schools, it's not using accurate data. You need to go to absinsights.org. I put it on the parent comment. So,
All right,
That's okay.
you want to close this out real quick?
yes, where's my script here? How do we close
Call
this
this meeting.
out? Call this meeting to a close. Did anyone have any announcements?
Oh, Maggie's no pregnant.
Does anyone have anything that they would like me to bring up?
Right.
Just email it, like, any questions I may have for us meeting.
And make sure you fill out the surveys. We reached the end.
Calendar survey is a big one. It talks about.
Oh, 15 minutes to fill out my calendar.
Superintendent search.
Yes. All right, so may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All right, any abstentions? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Snacks in here for the.
Yeah, why don't you? That'd be nice.